We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
The 23.
Hey, what is up, you guys? This is Steffi, aka In My Humble Opinion, and welcome back to another In My Humble Opinion Film Club movie review. Apologies for this being a full day late. I know I normally post these kinds of videos on Wednesday, but you know, life got in the way, so here we are. So in today's movie review, I'm going to be talking about the Steven Spielberg directed 2018 80s pop culture nostalgia adventure movie bonanza that is Ready Player One. So Ready Player One stars Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cooke, Ben Mendelsohn, Mark Rylance, Simon Pegg, and Lena Waithe, among a couple other people. Like I said, the movie was directed by Steven Spielberg, and just in case you guys didn't know, it's actually based on a book called, of course, Ready Player One, and that book was written by Ernest Cline. Now, before I continue, I just want to let you guys know I'm coming from the perspective of someone who hasn't read the book. I've heard a little talks here and there about how the book compares to the movie, but because I didn't read the book, it's really going to affect my personal thoughts and opinions about the movie. So just letting you guys know. So Ready Player One is set in the year 2045 when the world is in such a disarrayed state to the point where society has somehow all agreed that they're going to just plug in to this virtual reality world to really just escape the problems of their everyday lives. And that virtual reality world is called the Oasis, created by this video game genius named James Halliday. And it's really important to note that James Halliday grew up in the 80s, which is why he's really obsessed with the 80s and 80s pop culture and 80s video games, and in general pop culture and geek culture, because there's actually other references that are not specifically from the 80s that's included in the movie. Anyways, after James Halliday dies, it's announced by James Halliday before he dies that he's hidden 3 keys within the Oasis that all unlock this golden Easter egg. And whoever is the first person to find all 3 keys and eventually find the golden Easter egg, that person will go on to inherit James Halliday's fortune and total control over the Oasis. Enter Wade Watts, who is a genuine fan of James Halliday and genuinely loves being in the Oasis. And basically the entire plot of the movie revolves around Wade Watts and his friend's quest in finding the 3 different keys that will help them in unlocking the golden egg hidden within the game, all before this video game corporation called IOI does. Gosh, that was a mouthful to say, and if only you guys knew how many takes it took me to say all of that. But yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the movie, and now I'm going to be talking about the pros and the cons, just like I do with every movie review here on this channel, so here we go. Also, before we begin, I just want to say, spoilers ahead, this movie's been out for like a solid month or so, but just wanted to let you guys know, spoilers ahead.
Many of you, I only came here to escape, but I found something much bigger than just myself. Are you willing to fight?
Help us save the Oasis.
Alright, so my first pro to this movie is that it is very visually stunning. Obviously, like I mentioned before, this movie is directed by Steven Spielberg, so clearly this guy knows what he's doing. But Steven Spielberg aside, this movie is just so visually appealing to look at. The first time you're introduced to the world of the Oasis, they do this really cool thing where Wade Watts puts on his VR goggles and then the camera kind of rushes through this tunnel and then you're instantly into the world of the Oasis and you're just like, wow, I really want to be part of this world. It looks so freaking cool. One of my personal favorite sequences in this movie is in the very beginning when there's this car race that happens. Seeing all of the players getting into their cars and getting ready for the race is so much fun, and then when the actual race is occurring, you see different pop culture iconic characters popping out from nowhere, like T-Rex from Jurassic Park, and then you have King Kong. You're just like, wow, this is so freaking cool. But speaking of King Kong and T-Rex from Jurassic Park, my second pro to this movie is the nostalgia and pop culture references. This movie is basically a parade of pop culture references. Like, genuinely, in every single frame, you can probably spot 20 different references being made to different movies or television shows or video games from pop culture history, and it's just so much fun. Now, I know one of the hesitations for people when coming to watch this movie was the fact that they were just going to be throwing these nostalgic pop culture references just because they could. But for me, I personally feel like even though this film, yes, has tons of pop culture references, it still didn't take away from the main story that the movie was trying to tell. If you recognize the pop culture references that were being made, good job. If you didn't, that's okay too. And if anything, that actually adds to the self-reflexive nature of this film, considering that this movie literally revolves around characters trying to find the ultimate golden egg within the oasis. My third pro to this movie is the performances, specifically of Mark Rylance and Lena Waithe. Mark Rylance does a great job as James Halliday, and honestly, I think James Halliday is really the heart of this story. The way that Mark Rylance plays the James Halliday character, he's so awkward, but yet there is such an endearing quality to that, and you could tell he's very sincere and he genuinely loves what he does. And that idea alone is just such a key element to one of the major themes of this movie, which is just unabashedly, genuinely enjoying something. Whether that is playing a game or loving a film or music or TV, it's just unabashedly loving that thing and your love and passion for that being enough. And I really genuinely believe that if audiences didn't feel that emotional pull to the James Halliday character, this movie really wouldn't work. So I think Mark Rylance did a really, really great job. Another person who I thought did a great job as well is Lena Waithe. Waithe, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I believe it's Lena Waithe. But anyways, I just feel like she is so underrated in this movie. I don't hear a lot of people talking about what a great job she did. And the reason why I specifically want to pinpoint her is because she did such a great job with her voice acting. Lena Waithe's character is Wade Watts' best friend in the movie, but pretty much for 2/3 of the movie, you don't actually see Lena Waithe. It's just a gaming character, if that makes any sense. So you really only get to hear her voice, but she adds so much life to this character, and she is so animated and she is so funny. Her character is just so self-aware. I just really enjoyed her performance, honestly. My next pro to this movie is this idea of the power of the group. From what I've read from different articles and heard from different YouTube videos, apparently the Ready Player One book was really focused on Wade and Wade's journey alone. Even though, yes, he did have other friends within the game, they didn't really help him as much as the friends in the movie version of Ready Player One did. And I actually really love the fact that they included his friends more in his journey. Because for me, I just feel like watching a collective group of people trying to accomplish something is more exciting, and we as the audience then feel more a part of that journey in comparison to if it was just one singular person. And additionally, that's such an 80s trope, and that obviously makes sense in the context of this movie. I mean, thinking about films like Spielberg's E.T. or The Goonies or The Breakfast Club or even Netflix's Stranger Things. It's all about watching a group coming together in order to accomplish something. And those kinds of movies are just always so much fun to watch. My fifth pro, and this, you know, it's a personal thing, but my fifth pro this movie, all those Back to the Future callbacks. Wow. Now this might be stereotypical of me to say, but Back to the Future may arguably be my favorite 80s movie of all time. I mean, it's a classic, and I just loved all the Back to the Future references made in this movie. From the DeLorean to Artemis calling Parzival McFly, seeing those Mayor Goldie Wilson posters in the background, and apparently Doc Brown is seen walking around at some point. It just really struck a chord. One of my favorite Back to the Future referential moments in this movie is the use of the Zemeckis cube. For those of you guys who don't know, but I'm pretty sure you do if you're watching this video, Robert Zemeckis of course directed Back to the Future, and the Zemeckis cube's ability is that it can turn back time by, I believe, 1 full minute. So when Parzival / Wade actually gets to use the Zemeckis cube, hearing those iconic Back to the Future musical moments just, whew, it made me so happy. And additionally, if you guys didn't know, Alan Silvestri, who was the composer of the Back to the Future score, was also the composer for the Ready Player One score. And last but not least, my final pro to this movie, and arguably I think this may be the best pop culture reference they make in this film, is The Shining. Now I'm not gonna lie, I haven't even seen The Shining myself, but I recognize iconic images and moments from the movie, and the minute they started that whole Shining sequence, I was just, I was just amazed. From getting a very similar film grain quality of the original movie to recreating the Overlook Hotel and taking iconic images and moments and working the Ready Player One characters into that world in a way that makes sense, it was just so well done. And I've personally never seen anything like that. And when I watched this movie in theaters, the minute the Shining sequence started, everyone in the theater literally was like, oh my god, because it's just so good. It's just so good. Alright, now moving on to the cons of this movie. My first con to this movie is that at times I felt like the CGI and animated parts of the movie really restricted the actors. When you're watching Ready Player One, a lot of this movie takes place within the world of the Oasis, hence why they use a lot of animation and CGI. But in the rare times that you're actually brought into the real world and you actually see real people, it's so refreshing. And for me, I really noticed that disparity when Wade actually meets Sam for the first time. Like that scene alone, you actually got to see their expression and their emotion on their faces, and seeing the expression on the gaming characters doesn't really have the same effect as seeing the expression from real life people. My second con of this movie is that the romance between Sam and Wade was really rushed. Now, I heard in the book that it actually builds a little bit better than in the movie, but in the movie, it just feels so rushed. I think after like 2 or 3 days of Wade knowing who Sam is, he tells Sam that he loves her and that he wants to meet her in real life, and you're like, whoa, 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 wait, what is happening? And even the Sam character herself is like, boy, you need to calm down. The romance of Wade and Sam felt so rushed to the point where when they did finally get together, I didn't really care, and I couldn't really get on board with that relationship. It's not that I hated it, I just didn't feel any emotional attachment to it because the build-up was just so rushed. The third con that I have to this movie is that the characters are a bit two-dimensional. Now, there's a lot going on in this movie, and there's a lot to explain about the background of how the Oasis came to be, so maybe they didn't really have enough time to build full-blown backstories to all of their characters, but considering the fact that they intentionally chose to include Wade's friends more in his story, you would think that they would then choose to give those characters a bit more of a backstory, aside from like a sentence like, yeah, I'm an 11-year-old, so what? I don't know, I just felt like they really could have done more with those characters. My fourth con to this movie is the pacing issue. Now, there's this moment where I think it's around like Act 2 after the Shining moment. You're on this high of the Shining moment because the Shining moment was just so good. After that, for me, the movie kind of has a lull. It kind of dies. And frankly, and I've seen this movie twice, I don't really remember what happens after the whole Shining moment. I do know that the characters have to do lots of things before our next big moment of the movie, which is the epic battle between everyone playing in the Oasis and the IOI company. But after that Shining moment, the story kind of dies. I think it's because the characters have a lot of things that they need to figure out and a lot of things they need to do, but those moments are a bit dull and a bit boring in relation to everything else that is happening in the movie. And I don't really know how to categorize my last con. I'm just gonna label it as awkward moments because it's kind of like, what? I guess these are issues that kind of made me give a little side eye. So I'm just gonna name them really quickly. First, there is a very awkward line in this movie. After Wade's aunt and her boyfriend die, Wade has this confrontational moment with the Nolan Sorrento character, and he literally says, "You killed my mom's sister." When he said that in the movie, I was literally like, who talks like that? Another thing that made me give a bit of a side eye was that Sam's sort of Achilles heel was that she had this really faint birthmark over her face. And, you know, I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel insecure about that, but it was just so, why did she need to have this? Like, why did this character need to have this flaw as her thing? It really didn't need to be included, and frankly, like, you couldn't even see it the more that the movie progressed, so like, why was that even a thing? And probably the last thing that really made me side-eye a bit was the fact that all of Wade's friends just so happened to live in Ohio, and that thing really made me side-eye because in the beginning of the movie, they really established the fact that the Oasis is played worldwide, and they show you different parts of the world where this is played, and it just so happens that the 4 other friends that Wade has made in this game all just so happen to live in the same city as him? What? So, overall, I'm gonna give Ready Player One, honestly, I was gonna give Ready Player One a B, but after I watched it a second time, I'm gonna give Ready Player One a B+. Honestly, for me, this movie was just so much fun. And I know I feel like I keep saying that, but it was really just so much fun to watch. And yes, even though it may have been predictable at times and the characters were a bit two-dimensional, I didn't really care because I just frankly had a lot of fun watching this movie. I just loved the originality of the story. I loved all the pop culture references, especially since for me, I'm such like an 80s pop culture fan. It made me feel like a kid. And I didn't even grow up in the 80s, but it made me feel like a kid of the 80s. And like I've mentioned in this review already, I saw it twice. The first time I watched it by myself, and the second time I went to go watch it, I watched it with my dad because I just knew that this was a movie he was really gonna enjoy. And this might sound a little corny or cheesy, but getting to watch this kind of movie with my dad, he's where I get my love of pop culture and great movies and television and music from, it was a really fun time. During the battle scene, he was literally at one point shouting all of the different references at the screen, and I was like, okay, so that's about it for this movie review. If you liked it, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and please turn on the notification button down below so you know when a new video from me comes out. And comment down below, if you were a player in the Oasis, what would your avatar be? Now, for me, when I was getting ready for this video, I kind of was like, maybe I could like throw in some pop culture 80s references. So I'm actually wearing a Captain EO sweatshirt right now. I have a Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation key earring here, and I'm also kind of wearing like my hair in the way that Whitney Houston wore her hair when she performed for Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday in 1988. And I also have some purple eyeshadow, which is a bit of a shout out to Prince, you know, Purple Rain. But if I had to like select my avatar for this game that was 80s inspired, maybe I'd like dress up as Captain EO. Or maybe like Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation, because I really like that outfit. So if you were selecting who your avatar would be or what your avatar would look like, what would that person look like? So that's about it for this video. As always, everything I said was just my own personal thoughts and all my humble opinion. Once again, I'm really sorry that this video came out a day late. Life happened, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!